Welcome to NFL Nexus. We're diving deep into a cautionary tale coming straight out of Dallas today. This is a story all about leadership, or maybe a lack of it, about accountability, and how one single decision can send an entire franchise into a complete tailspin. Let's start with a number. 32nd. That says pretty much everything you need to know, right? In the 2025 season, that's where the Dallas Cowboys pass defense ranked. Dead last. Out of 32 teams, in today's NFL, a league that's all about the forward pass, they were the absolute worst at stopping it. You just can't win like that. Okay, how about another number for you? 30.1. That's how many points their defense was giving up per game. That's not just bad, that's a new and, let's be honest, pretty unwelcome franchise record. We're not talking about just a rough season here, folks. This was historically, catastrophically bad on the defensive side of the ball. So you gotta ask, right? How does a team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl contender suddenly become home to the NFL's worst defense? How do you fall off a cliff that fast? Well, to answer that, we've gotta go back. We need to rewind the clock and really pull apart the decisions that led to this absolute disaster. And that's exactly what we're gonna do. By the way, if you're into these deep dive NFL breakdowns, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button, like this explainer, and definitely drop a comment below. We wanna know what you think. All right. Here's our game plan for breaking this all down. First, we'll survey the wreckage, the defense in ruins. Then we'll get to the heart of it, the billion-dollar bet that started this whole mess. After that, we'll watch the season unravel, piece by piece. We'll look at the revolving door of coaches, dive into the high-stakes draft they're now facing, and finally, focus on the man in the mirror. Okay, Section 1, a defense in ruins. Let's just start by looking at the shocking aftermath of that 2025 season, just so we can all appreciate how bad things truly got. Man, just look at these numbers. They're brutal. You can see it right there. 32nd, dead last in points allowed per game. 32nd in passing yards allowed per game. This isn't just one player having a bad year or a scheme not quite clicking. No, this was a complete, total system failure on the defensive side of the ball. And the result? A losing record and, you guessed it, sitting at home watching the playoffs for the second year in a row. And here's what's so crazy about this whole thing. This wasn't some slow, gradual decline. It was a cliff dive, a sudden, violent collapse. And the most unbelievable part? You can trace it all back to one single decision. One trade that started a domino effect that this team, to this day, has not recovered from. All right, Section 2, the billion-dollar bet. Let's get right to it. We're going back to the moment it all began, the rationale versus the reality of that Micah Parsons trade. The moment owner and general manager Jerry Jones decided to part ways with, well, arguably the best defensive player in all of football. So here are the details of the trade, and they are frankly stunning. You have Micah Parsons, a true once-in-a-generation talent, shipped off to the Green Bay Packers. And what did the Packers do? They immediately signed him to the richest contract for a non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. 4 years, $188 million. And what did Dallas get back for this unicorn? Pick number 12 and pick number 20. Now, on the surface, you might think, hey, 2 first-rounders, that's a pretty good haul. But we are not talking about just any player here. This right here, this was the logic. This was Jerry Jones's on-paper spreadsheet theory. He went on TV and said, we could potentially secure 5 of the very best players in the NFL for the cost of 1 Micah. It was a purely mathematical asset management play. But football isn't played on a spreadsheet, is it? What this theory completely, and I mean completely ignored, was everything you can't measure. The unquantifiable impact of a guy like Parsons, his leadership, the way opposing offenses literally had to build their entire game plan around him, the swagger and confidence he gave that entire defense, you can't put a price on that. And this really just says it all, doesn't it? The massive gaping chasm between Jones's theory and the 2025 reality. On one side, you have this nice, clean quote about getting 5 great players for 1. And on the other side, the brutal reality. The worst pass defense in the entire NFL and a franchise record for points allowed. That 5-for-1 math might have sounded good on CNBC, but on the field, on Sundays, the scoreboard told a completely different and utterly disastrous story. And you know what's really wild? The advanced numbers, the deep dive analytics, they basically screamed that this was going to happen. There's this metric called EPA, or expected points added. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. It measures how much a single play helps a team score. Well, before the trade, analysts like Bill Barnwell at ESPN looked at the Cowboys' EPA with Micah Parsons on the field versus without him, and the difference was staggering. It was literally the difference between the league's best defense and its second worst. He wasn't just one player on the field. He was the system. He was a one-man defensive wrecking crew, and the data proved it. Okay, let's move on to Section 3, the season unravels. Because that whole on-paper theory, it didn't just fail to launch. It imploded on contact with reality. Let's take a very painful walk, through the chronology of this defensive collapse. It started immediately. Week 1, a national TV game against the rival Philadelphia Eagles just 3 days after the Parsons trade became official. And what happened? A 24-20 loss where the defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. Both offenses scored on the first 8 consecutive drives of the game. It was a track meet, and it was an absolutely ominous, terrifying sign of exactly what was to come for the rest of the season. So a few weeks later, they're getting ready to play Green Bay, the dreaded revenge game. And Jerry Jones is still out there, publicly defiant. He says there are 30 other teams other than the Cowboys playing without Micah. And, technically he's right. But the giant hole in that logic is that none of those other 30 teams had Micah Parsons to begin with and then willingly decided to trade him away, creating a crater-sized hole in the middle of their defense. This timeline here, it just perfectly maps out the downward spiral. You see the trade happen in September, and Jerry's 5-for-1 theory. Boom. Week 1, the defense gets carved up. Fast forward to November, and the front office is in full-blown panic mode, making a desperate trade for defensive tackle Quinnen Williams, giving up even more future picks. And the whole time this is happening, what's the offense doing? Dak Prescott is breaking Tony Romo's all-time passing records. It just highlights the insane imbalance. They basically built a Ferrari of an offense and gave it the brakes from a rusty bicycle. And let's talk about that panic move for a second. To get Quinnen Williams from the Jets, they gave up a ton. Their second-round pick in the upcoming draft, a first-rounder the year after that, and their former first-round pick, Mozzie Smith. It was a classic case of throwing good money, or in this case, good draft picks, after bad. It was a desperate, expensive Band-Aid. But guess what? The defense still finished 30th overall. One guy, no matter how good, just couldn't plug all the holes. So the disastrous season finally ends, the dust settles, and accountability is demanded. I mean, the fans are furious, the media is calling for heads to roll. Someone has to pay the price for this kind of collapse, right? So, where did the blame end up falling? Well, on January 6th, 2026, it was defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus who got the axe, fired after one season. But get this, he was just the latest victim. In 2023, it was Dan Quinn. In 2024, Mike Zimmer. 2025, Eberflus. That's 3 different coordinators in 3 years, with a 4th now on the way for 2026. That's not instability, that's a revolving door. It's not a recipe for success, it's a massive symptom of a much deeper problem. And that brings us to the absolute core of the issue. While the coordinators were being used as scapegoats, getting fired one after the other, the one man responsible for putting the players on the field, the general manager, remained completely untouched, totally immune to accountability. And when he was asked point blank if he would ever give up that GM title, Jerry Jones's answer was legendary. No. Just no. I didn't buy an investment. I bought an occupation. You can't make this stuff up. Think about this for a second. In literally any other organization in the NFL, a GM who presides over this kind of collapse, a collapse, by the way, that can be traced directly back to his own signature move, would be in serious trouble. They'd be facing consequences. But not in Dallas. In Dallas, the owner and general manager since 1989 is the one constant. The guy who architected the problem holds the press conference to fire the guy he hired to fix it. It's unbelievable. Which brings us to right now. Section 5, a high-stakes draft. Because all of this whole saga, it all comes to a head in Pittsburgh for the 2026 NFL Draft. The bill for the Micah Parsons trade is finally coming due, and the Cowboys have absolutely zero room for error. So this is what they have to work with. They've got 2 first-round picks, number 12 and number 20, both from Green Bay in the Parsons trade. This is it. This is the 5-for-1 theory in action. But look closely, what's missing? There's no second-round pick. Why? Oh, right, they had to give that up in the panic trade for Quinnen Williams. So the pressure to absolutely nail both of these first-round selections is just immense. And it's not like they have one little hole to plug. They have genuine, glaring needs at every single level of the defense. They need a linebacker, they need a cornerback, and oh, the irony, they desperately need a pass rusher. To replace the generational pass rusher they willingly traded away. These two picks are supposed to be the magic bullet to fix all of it. And this whole dilemma, this tightrope they're walking, is perfectly encapsulated by one prospect. Let's look at a real-world example. Tennessee cornerback Jermod McCoy. McCoy is the perfect example of the gamble they're facing. The upside, the guy is electric. Elite speed, a 4.37 40-yard dash. Proven production, 4 interceptions back in 2024. He's the kind of game changer they desperately need. But the risk is huge. He missed the entire 2025 season with a torn ACL, and word is the organization has, quote, a real concern about that knee. It's the ultimate boom or bust scenario. And that's the question, isn't it? Can this organization, the one that traded away a generational can't-miss talent, afford to risk one of their precious return picks on a player with a giant injury red flag? This is the high-stakes poker game that Jerry Jones created for himself. If they take McCoy and he doesn't pan out, wow, it would be an absolute catastrophe. And so here we are. As the draft gets closer and closer, the whole narrative, the whole story comes full circle. It all leads back to Section 6, the man in the mirror, the unchanging face of the Dallas Cowboys. Just a few days ago, Jerry Jones was talking to the media. He says he's looking at making moves, trading up, trading down. He said, and I quote, "I've looked at that mirror a lot about how to go up and down and trade and do those kinds of things. Absolutely." But if you're a Cowboys fan, you've heard this song before, haven't you? It sounds exactly like the promises of substantive trades he made a year ago that, well, they just never happened. So let's just run through the final tally here. He traded away his franchise cornerstone. He fired the coach who couldn't clean up the mess he created. He oversaw the worst defense in the entire NFL. And now, his only solution is to hit home runs with the 2 picks he got from that very trade. He talks about looking in the mirror, but at some point, the person looking back has to be held accountable. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, the one that hangs over this entire franchise like a storm cloud. Is the architect of the problem truly the right person to design the solution? As they head into the most critical draft in recent memory, holding the very assets they got for making their biggest mistake, fans are left to wonder, is this the moment the cycle finally breaks, or is it just about to begin all over again? That's all we've got for this explainer on NFL Nexus. It's a heck of a situation in Dallas. So what do you think? What should the Cowboys do with those 2 first-round picks? Let us know what you think down in the comments. We read all of them. And hey, if you want to help support the channel, we'd really appreciate it. A great way to do that is by checking out our coloring books. They're perfect for all ages, kids, grandkids, even adults. You can find them by clicking the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.